I woke up at 3 in the morning to the sound of my bedroom door creaking open. Through half-closed eyes, I watched my son-in-law Derek creep toward my dresser, his phone flashlight sweeping across the room. My heart sank as he reached for the drawer where I kept my safe keys. Sarah had married him 2 years ago, against my advice. Now, as he slowly pulled the drawer open, his face went white. His whole body froze. What he saw there would change everything forever. My name is Buddy Thompson, and at 68 years old, I thought I'd seen enough of life to spot trouble coming from a mile away. Turns out I was wrong. 2 years ago, my daughter Sarah brought home Derek James, and from the moment he walked through my front door, something felt off. Derek was everything a father supposedly wants for his daughter on paper. 32 years old, tall, clean-cut, with a smile that could sell ice to Eskimos. He worked as a pharmaceutical sales representative, drove a pristine BMW, and always showed up with expensive gifts. Sarah's eyes lit up whenever he entered a room, and that should have been enough for me. But after 40 years in the construction business building my company from a single truck to a multi-million-dollar operation, I'd learned to trust my gut. And my gut was screaming. The first few months were a whirlwind of romance. Derek took Sarah to fancy restaurants, surprise weekend getaways to Napa Valley, and even flew her to Hawaii for her birthday. My sister Margaret couldn't stop gushing about what a catch he was. My brother Tom joked that Sarah had hit the jackpot. Even my girlfriend Nancy, usually a sharp judge of character, seemed charmed by his attention to detail and thoughtfulness. But I noticed things others missed. The way Derek's eyes lingered on my Rolex during family dinners. How he steered conversations toward my business success, fishing for details about property values and investment returns. His jokes about "must be nice" when he saw my lake house photos. Small things, but they added up like termites in a foundation. Sarah announced their engagement 6 months after they met. Derek had proposed with a 3-carat diamond ring at sunset on Malibu Beach. The wedding planning consumed our lives. Derek insisted on the most expensive venue, the most elaborate flowers, a reception for 300 guests. When I offered to pay as tradition dictated, his eyes gleamed with something that made my stomach turn. "That's so generous, Buddy," he said, clapping me on the shoulder with too much familiarity. "Family takes care of family, right?" The wedding was beautiful. Sarah looked radiant in her designer gown, and Derek played the devoted groom perfectly. During his speech, he thanked me for welcoming him into such a successful family and made pointed mentions of learning from my business acumen. Guests found it touching. I found it calculating. 3 months after the wedding, the mask began to slip. Derek arrived for Sunday dinner with a briefcase and a practiced pitch. He'd found an incredible investment opportunity in medical equipment distribution. His company was expanding, and ground floor investors would see massive returns. All he needed was $50,000 to secure his position. "Think of it as investing in your daughter's future," he said, spreading glossy prospectuses across my dining table. "With my connections and your capital, we could triple this in 18 months. I listened politely, asked a few questions about market analysis and profit margins, then suggested he might want to build up his own savings first. The room temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. Derek's charming smile flickered, replaced for just a second by something darker. Then the mask slipped back on. "Of course," he said, gathering his papers. "I understand. Not everyone has vision for these opportunities." That night, Sarah called in tears. Derek had spent the drive home explaining how her father didn't trust him, didn't see him as real family, was probably planning to cut them out of any inheritance. She begged me to reconsider, said Derek was just trying to provide for their future. I held my tongue about his BMW lease payments and credit card debt I'd quietly discovered through my banking connections. Sometimes being right isn't worth breaking your daughter's heart. But I started paying closer attention. I noticed Derek's questions becoming more direct. He wanted to know about my retirement accounts, life insurance policies, property holdings. He volunteered to help me with estate planning, recommending lawyers who specialized in protecting family wealth. When I politely declined, saying my affairs were in order, he pushed harder. "What happens if something happens to you tomorrow?" he asked during one Sunday dinner. "Sarah could lose everything to probate. Nancy isn't family legally. The government could take half. I'm just trying to protect Sarah's interests." Nancy, ever graceful, changed the subject to her grandmother's apple pie recipe. But I caught the look she gave me. She saw it too now. Derek wasn't just interested in my money. He was mapping out exactly how to get it. 6 months into Sarah's marriage, what started as subtle hints exploded into a full-court press. Derek had apparently decided that patience wasn't profitable enough. It was a Sunday afternoon in October, the kind of crisp fall day that made me grateful for my years of hard work. The family had gathered at my house for our traditional monthly dinner. Margaret brought her famous pot roast, Tom contributed his homemade rolls, and Nancy had spent all morning on her grandmother's apple pie. Derek arrived with Sarah and a leather portfolio that looked more suited to a board meeting than a family meal. He helped Sarah with her coat, the perfect gentleman, but I caught him checking his phone repeatedly, texting with an intensity that suggested urgency. We made it through dinner with the usual small talk. Tom's grandson had made the varsity football team. Margaret's hip replacement was healing well. Sarah glowed as she talked about redecorating their apartment, though I noticed she carefully avoided mentioning costs. Derek contributed stories about pharmaceutical conferences and sales achievements, each somehow circling back to money. As Nancy and Sarah cleared the dessert plates, Derek cleared his throat. "Buddy, I've been doing some research that I think you need to hear." He opened his portfolio with practiced efficiency, spreading documents across my dining table like a general planning invasion. There were articles about estate taxes, horror stories of families destroyed by probate statistics, about nursing home costs draining inheritances. "The average nursing home in California costs $8,000 a month," he said, tapping a highlighted figure. "That's $96,000 a year. Your assets could be gone in a decade." Margaret, who'd been battling her own health issues, went pale. "I hadn't realized it was that much." Derek seized the opening. "That's why smart families protect their wealth through proper trust structures. I've taken the liberty of researching the best options." He produced business cards for 3 estate attorneys, all specializing in wealth preservation and family trusts. He had brochures for different trust structures, comparison charts, even a PowerPoint presentation on his tablet. The preparation was impressive and deeply unsettling. "The key," Derek continued, "is to transfer assets into an irrevocable trust with Sarah as the primary beneficiary. This protects everything from creditors' lawsuits and medical costs. It's what all wealthy families do." Tom leaned forward, intrigued. "That does sound smart. What do you think, Buddy?" I took a slow sip of coffee, weighing my words. "I appreciate your concern, Derek, but I've already got comprehensive estate planning in place. My attorney has handled everything." Derek's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "When was the last time you reviewed it? Laws change. Your current plan might have huge gaps. Sarah could lose millions to taxes." "My affairs are current," I said calmly. "But thank you for thinking of us." "I'm thinking of Sarah." Derek shot back, his voice rising slightly. "Do you have any idea how vulnerable she is? What if something happens to you tomorrow? What if Nancy decides to contest the will? What if—" "Derek," Nancy interrupted quietly, returning from the kitchen. "Would anyone like more coffee?" The tension crackled like static electricity. Sarah stood in the doorway, looking between her husband and me with growing alarm. Margaret fidgeted with her napkin. Tom suddenly found the ceiling fascinating. Derek wasn't finished. "I've seen this before. Families torn apart because someone was too proud to accept help, too stubborn to see the dangers. Is that what you want for Sarah? What I want, I said, standing slowly, is to enjoy dessert with my family. We can discuss business another time. There might not be another time. Derek slammed his hand on the table, making everyone jump. You're 70 years old. You've had heart issues. Every day you wait is another day. Sarah's future is at risk. The room went silent. Sarah's face crumpled. Derek, please. He turned to her, his expression shifting to wounded concern. I'm just trying to protect you, baby. Your father obviously doesn't understand modern finance. He's stuck in old thinking that could cost you everything. That's when Nancy proved why I loved her. She moved beside me, placing a gentle hand on my arm. Buddy's protected his family just fine for decades. I'm sure Sarah trusts her father's judgment. Derek's eyes flashed dangerously. What would you know about it? You're not even family. You've known him what, a year. I'm trying to secure my wife's inheritance and you… Enough. I didn't raise my voice, but something in my tone cut through his building tirade. Derek, you're welcome in my home as Sarah's husband, but you will speak respectfully to everyone here, especially Nancy, and you will accept that my financial affairs are my business. He stood abruptly, knocking over his coffee cup. The brown liquid spread across his carefully arranged documents, soaking through statistics and legal recommendations. Fine. When you're drooling in a nursing home and Sarah's inheritance is paying for it, remember this moment. Remember who tried to help. He stormed out, leaving Sarah in tears. She mumbled apologies and ran after him. Margaret and Tom made excuses and left soon after the family dinner ruined. Nancy and I sat in my kitchen, the house suddenly too quiet. He's not going to let this go, she said softly. I nodded, pouring us both fresh coffee. I know. That night, I couldn't sleep. Around midnight, I went downstairs for water and noticed a light in the garage. Derek's voice carried through the door, low but intense. I pressed my ear against the wood, my heart pounding. The old man's sitting on at least $5 million. Sarah has no idea how much he's really worth. He keeps everything in that safe, even the deed to the lake house. I saw him open it once he thinks I wasn't watching. Just need to get those keys. There was a pause. Then Derek continued. No, she won't be a problem. I've got her convinced he's losing it, getting paranoid about money. A few more months and she'll be begging him to sign everything over. Yeah, the insurance is all set up. Either way, we get paid. My blood turned to ice. This wasn't about protecting Sarah's inheritance. This was about stealing it. And Derek had just revealed something worse than greed. He was planning something that made my hands shake as I crept back upstairs. My son-in-law wasn't just a gold digger, he was a predator, and my daughter was caught in his web. The morning after overhearing Derek's phone call, I sat in my home office, staring at a business card worn soft from years in my wallet. Paul Morrison, private investigator. We'd served in Vietnam together, built our businesses side by side, and trusted each other with our lives more times than I could count. I hadn't spoken to him in 2 years, but some friendships don't need maintenance. Buddy Thompson. Paul answered on the second ring, his voice still carrying that Louisiana drawl. Tell me you're not calling because you need a golf partner. I need your help, Paul. It's about Sarah. The joking tone vanished. I'll be there in an hour. Paul arrived looking exactly as I remembered, silver-haired, sharp-eyed, wearing his trademark navy blazer. We sat in my study, doors closed, as I laid out everything. Derek's obsession with money, the estate planning ambush, and most disturbing, the overheard phone conversation. Paul took notes in his small leather notebook, occasionally asking clarifying questions. You want a full background? He asked when I finished. Everything. Financial history, previous relationships, employment verification. I need to know who my daughter really married. Paul studied me carefully. You prepared for what I might find? I'm prepared to protect Sarah, whatever that takes. He nodded, pocketing his notebook. Give me 2 weeks, and Buddy, be careful. If Derek's talking about insurance, he's thinking long-term. Watch your back. Those 2 weeks crawled by like molasses. I maintained normal routines, hosted Sunday dinner, even played golf with Derek when he suggested it. But I watched everything now. The way he insisted on driving, how he ordered my drinks at the club, his sudden interest in my medical history during casual conversation. Nancy became my secret ally. She started joining me for all meals, never leaving me alone with Derek. We developed signals a specific way of holding her coffee cup, if she noticed something off a code phrase about her grandmother, if we needed to leave somewhere quickly. Derek noticed our increased closeness and used it as ammunition with Sarah, suggesting Nancy was manipulating me. Paul called exactly 2 weeks later. "We need to meet, not at your house." We met at a small diner in Riverside, far from anyone who might recognize us. Paul slid a thick folder across the cracked Formica table. His expression told me everything before I opened it. "Derek James isn't even his real name," Paul began. "It's Derek Jameson. He changed it legally 5 years ago, after his first engagement ended badly. The woman Patricia Morse was the daughter of a retail chain owner in Phoenix. Derek dated her for 8 months, got engaged. Then her father died suddenly of a heart attack. Suspicious circumstances, but nothing proven. The family discovered Derek had taken out credit cards in the father's name, forged checks, stolen about $200,000 total. They settled out of court to avoid scandal. My coffee grew cold as I flipped through documents. Credit reports showing massive debts. Court records from Phoenix, Dallas, and Miami. Photos of Derek with different women, all young, all connected to wealth. "There's more," Paul continued. 2 other engagements followed the same pattern. Rebecca Hayward in Dallas, father owned car dealerships. Elena Vance in Miami, grandfather had shipping money. Both relationships ended when family members got suspicious. The Miami case included a restraining order after Derek threatened Elena's brother. "What about his job?" I asked, though I suspected the answer. "Technically true. He does work for Pharma Solutions, Inc., but it's commission only. He hasn't made a sale in 6 months. The BMW is leased under a fake company name, 3 months behind on payments. He owes roughly $200,000 to various creditors, including $50,000 to some very unpleasant people who run high-stakes poker games." Paul pulled out another set of photos. Derek entering a casino. Derek at an underground poker game. Derek meeting with Marcus Volkov, a man whose reputation for collecting debts involved hospital visits. "He's desperate, Buddy. The gambling debts come with weekly interest. My sources say he promised Volkov a big payment by the end of the year. That's 3 months away." I felt sick. "The life insurance." Paul's expression darkened. "That's the worst part." He pulled out a final document. 6 months ago, a $500,000 policy was taken out on your life. Forged signature, but good enough to pass initial inspection. The beneficiary is Sarah, but Derek has medical power of attorney if anything happens to her. My hands shook as I read the policy details. "He's planning to kill me." That's my assessment. I also found this. Paul showed me printouts from Derek's computer search history, obtained through methods he didn't elaborate on. Searches for undetectable poisons, insulin overdose symptoms, making death look natural, and most chilling, how long before life insurance pays out. "There's something else," Paul added quietly. "My contact at Pharma Solutions says Derek's been asking about their sample inventory, specifically medications that affect heart rhythm. Says it's for a presentation, but he's not scheduled for any." We sat in silence for a moment. The cheerful diner sounds, clattering dishes, and friendly chatter seemed to come from another world. My son-in-law wasn't just a con artist. He was planning murder. "What about Sarah?" I asked finally. "Is she in danger?" Paul chose his words carefully. "Not immediately. She's his cover, his access to you." "But Buddy, I found something odd in their medical records. Derek had a vasectomy 3 years ago. Sarah doesn't know. She's been talking about starting a family." Another lie, another manipulation. My poor daughter was living with a complete fiction. "What do you recommend?" I asked. "Go to the police, now, today." I shook my head. With what forged insurance that he'll claim Sarah did internet searches, he'll say we're research for work Derek's smart Paul. He's done this before. He knows how to explain everything away. Then what? I gathered the documents, my mind already working. I need proof he can't explain. I need him to incriminate himself. Paul leaned back, recognizing my expression. "You're going to set a trap. He wants my money, he wants my life, fine. Let him come for it, but when he does, I'll be ready." "Buddy, this isn't a construction project. This man is dangerous." "So am I, Paul. I didn't build my business by rolling over when someone tried to bulldoze me. I've got one advantage Derek doesn't know about." "What's that?" "He thinks I'm just a stupid old man with money. He has no idea what I'm capable of when someone threatens my family." Paul smiled grimly. "What do you need from me?" "Keep investigating. Find everything. Every woman he's conned, every crime he's committed, every debt he owes. Build me a case so airtight that when the time comes he'll have nowhere to run. And Sarah. I'll handle Sarah. She needs to discover the truth herself or she'll never believe it. Derek's been poisoning her against me for months. If I go to her now with accusations, she'll choose him." We shook hands outside the diner. As Paul drove away, I stood in the parking lot, feeling the weight of what lay ahead. Derek thought he was the spider in this web. He was about to learn he was just another fly. That night, I called Nancy. "I need to tell you everything. And then I need your help." She listened without interruption as I laid out Paul's findings. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. "What's the plan?" she asked simply. "I'm going to give Derek exactly what he wants, access to my safe, but what he finds there will destroy him." "That's dangerous, Buddy." "Not as dangerous as doing nothing. He's escalating Nancy. The gambling debts, the insurance policy, the poison searches. We might not have much time." "Then we better get started," she said. "Tell me what you need." As I outlined my plan, I felt a strange mixture of fear and determination. Derek James thought he'd found an easy mark in Buddy Thompson. He was about to learn that some old men have teeth, and I was prepared to bite. The next morning, I transformed my home into a carefully orchestrated stage. Every detail had to be perfect, every angle covered. Derek thought he was playing chess while I was playing checkers. Time to show him I'd been playing three-dimensional warfare while he was still learning the rules. First, the cameras. I called my security guy Marcus Chen, who'd wired my construction sites for years. I told him I wanted upgrades for insurance purposes, keeping the real reason private. Within 3 days, my house had more hidden cameras than a casino. Motion-activated night vision enabled with feeds backing up to multiple cloud servers. The bedroom got special attention with pinhole cameras covering every angle. The masterpiece was the dresser drawer. Marcus installed a pressure-sensitive camera that would activate the moment someone opened it. The lens was smaller than a shirt button, invisible, unless you knew exactly where to look. It would capture perfect facial shots of anyone reaching inside. "This is some serious tech, Buddy," Marcus said, testing the wireless feeds. "You expecting trouble?" "Just being careful," I replied. "Can never be too prepared these days." Next came the safe modifications. My actual valuables went into a safety deposit box, downtown property deeds, stock certificates, my will, everything Derek hoped to steal. In their place, I created an elaborate deception. Fake deeds with altered numbers, doctored bank statements showing accounts that didn't exist, investment portfolios for companies I'd never heard of. Each document looked authentic, but would crumble under real scrutiny. The genius touch came from Nancy's nephew Robert, who worked in television props. He created perfect replicas of expensive jewelry, even a fake Rolex that looked identical to my real one. "This is movie-quality work," he said proudly. "Nobody could tell without close examination." But the real trap wasn't the fake valuables. It was what I placed in the drawer with the safe keys. I found the perfect photograph through Paul's investigation, Derek at the Mirage Casino, arm around a blonde woman who definitely wasn't Sarah, dated just 2 weeks ago. Paul's contact had snapped it during surveillance. Derek's hand was on the woman's waist, their body language intimate champagne glasses raised in a toast. Beneath the photo, I placed a letter in my handwriting. Derek, I know about Patricia Morse in Phoenix. I know about Rebecca Hayward and Elena Vance. I know about the forged life insurance policy and your searches for poison. I know about Marcus Volkov and your gambling debts. But most importantly, I know what you're planning. Check the safe. We need to talk. Buddy. The letter went into a sealed envelope marked, Derek, Urgent. I attached it to the keys with a small chain impossible to miss. Nancy helped with the next phase. We started a routine where she'd prepare chamomile tea every evening at 9, bringing it to me in the living room where I'd dozed off watching television. Derek noticed during his visits, even commenting once about old man habits. What he didn't notice was Nancy pouring the tea down the sink later while I pretended to sleep. You sure he'll use sleeping medication? Nancy asked one evening as we rehearsed. Paul's research showed he did it before. With Patricia's father, there were traces of sedatives in his system the night he died. Never enough to prove anything, but enough to establish a pattern. Speaking of Paul, he continued feeding me intelligence. Derek's gambling debts had increased to $75,000 with interest mounting daily. Volkov's men had been seen following Derek, sending a clear message about payment deadlines. Derek had also increased his questions about my health during family dinners, casually bringing up heart conditions and stroke risks. But the hardest part was discovering Sarah's situation. Paul's surveillance revealed she'd been visiting fertility clinics paying cash to keep it off their insurance. She was planning to surprise Derek with pregnancy news, unaware her husband had been surgically sterilized years ago. The deception broke my heart. I made a difficult decision. After Sunday dinner, while Derek loaded the car, I pulled Sarah aside. Sweetheart, I want you to know something, I said carefully. No matter what happens, no matter what you might hear or think, I love you. You're my daughter. Nothing will ever change that. She looked puzzled. Dad, is everything okay? You've been acting strange lately. Just promise me something. If anything ever seems wrong, if you ever feel unsafe or confused, go to Nancy's house. She has a key and she'll always help you. You're scaring me. Promise me, Sarah. I promise, she said slowly. But Dad… Ready to go, babe. Derek appeared in the doorway, his timing suspicious as always. His eyes narrowed at our proximity. Everything okay here? Just saying goodbye to my daughter, I said evenly. Derek's arm went around Sarah possessively. We should go. Early morning tomorrow. He steered her toward the door, throwing me a look that could have curdled milk. That night, Nancy stayed over, as she'd been doing more frequently. We went through our plans one more time. She had copies of all Paul's evidence in a safety deposit box. Her nephew, Robert the toxicologist, had been drawing my blood weekly, establishing a baseline in case Derek had already started poisoning attempts. Everything was documented, backed up, prepared for legal scrutiny. What if he doesn't take the bait? Nancy asked. He will. His debts are crushing him. Volkov won't wait much longer. And Sarah mentioned they're looking at houses talking about children. Derek needs money fast, and he thinks I'm the ATM. And if something goes wrong? I took her hands. Then you have everything you need. Paul has instructions. The police get copies of everything. You protect Sarah. I don't like this, buddy. Neither do I. But doing nothing means waiting for him to strike first. At least this way we control when and how. We tested the camera feeds one last time. Every angle covered every recording device functional. The motion sensors in the drawer worked perfectly. The safe's silent alarm connected directly to Paul and the local police station, though they'd think it was just a malfunction unless I confirmed otherwise. 3 days later, Derek called with an unusual request. He wanted to bring dinner over Friday night, just him and Sarah, to apologize for the estate planning argument. My radar immediately went off. Derek never apologized for anything. "That's thoughtful," I said carefully. "What time?" "7. I'll bring steaks from that place you like. We can have a guy's night while Sarah and Nancy catch up." The hair on my neck stood up. Derek had been researching my favorite restaurant. He knew I loved their ribeye. He was setting his own stage. "Sounds perfect," I said. "Looking forward to it." After hanging up, I called Paul. "It's happening. This Friday." "You sure?" "He's bringing dinner, specifically from my favorite place. How much you want to bet there's something extra in my steak?" "I'll be parked down the street. First sign of trouble, I'm calling it in." "No, we need him to complete the attempt. Half measures won't put him away." Friday arrived with the weight of anticipation. I spent the day triple-checking everything. Cameras operational, drawer prepared, safe ready. Nancy prepped with our signals. Paul in position. Robert on standby with medical equipment in case Derek had already started poisoning attempts. As evening approached, I sat in my living room looking at photos of Sarah as a child. Her first birthday face covered in chocolate cake. Her college graduation beaming with pride. Her wedding day radiant beside a man I now knew was a monster. "I'm sorry, sweetheart," I whispered to her photo. "I'm so sorry I couldn't protect you from this, but I promise it ends tonight." The doorbell rang at exactly 7. Derek stood on my porch with expensive steaks and his practiced smile. Sarah hugged me warmly, no idea she was walking into the final act of her husband's deception. "Let's have a great evening," Derek said, shaking my hand with false warmth. "Family's what matters most, right?" "Absolutely," I agreed, matching his smile. "Family is everything." As I closed the door behind them, I caught Nancy's eye. She nodded slightly, understanding. The trap was set. Now we waited for the spider to walk into his own web. Dinner unfolded like a carefully choreographed dance. Derek played the perfect son-in-law grilling steaks on my patio, while regaling us with stories from work. He laughed at all the right moments, complimented Nancy's potato salad, and even helped clear plates without being asked. If I hadn't known the truth, I might have been fooled. Sarah glowed with happiness, relieved that her husband and father seemed to be reconciling. She kept touching Derek's arm, sharing private smiles, completely unaware of the serpent coiled beside her. During dessert, she excused herself to use the bathroom, and I caught her pressing her hand to her stomach with a secret smile. My heart broke a little more. "Coffee," Nancy offered as we finished the meal. "Actually," Derek said, producing a bottle from his bag, "I brought Buddy's favorite scotch. Thought we could have a drink together, bury the hatchet properly." Macallan. 18 year. He'd done his homework. The bottle alone cost $300. "That's very generous," I said, accepting the glass he poured. The amber liquid caught the light beautifully. I wondered what else might be catching the light in that glass. We moved to the living room, Derek ensuring I sat in my usual chair. Sarah and Nancy chatted on the couch, while Derek and I discussed construction markets and investment opportunities. He kept refilling my glass, his own barely touched. Around 9, Nancy performed our rehearsed routine. "Buddy, I'll make your tea." "No need tonight," Derek interrupted smoothly. "We're enjoying the scotch, right, Buddy?" I nodded, playing along. "Best I've had in years." But Nancy persisted, as planned. "You know how you get without your evening tea. I'll just be a minute." She returned with my usual mug chamomile steam rising. Derek watched intently as I took several sips between scotch tastes. Within 20 minutes, I let my eyes grow heavy. My responses slowed. When Sarah asked about plans for Thanksgiving, I mumbled something incoherent. "I think someone's ready for bed," Derek said with false concern. "All that scotch on top of tea?" I slumped further in my chair, breathing deepening. Through barely open eyes, I watched Derek check his phone repeatedly. Waiting. Calculating. "Maybe we should help him upstairs," Sarah suggested. "Let him rest," Derek said quickly. "He looks comfortable. Besides, I need to talk to you about something." He led Sarah to the kitchen, their voices low but urgent. I strained to hear catching fragments. House hunting. Down payment. Ask your father. Perfect timing. Sarah sounded uncertain. Derek insistent. Nancy played her part, perfectly fussing over me before announcing she was going to bed. "Don't stay up too late," she told Sarah, squeezing her shoulder meaningfully. Another hour passed. I remained motionless, breathing steadily, listening to Derek's growing impatience. Finally, he made his move. "Sarah, why don't you go up and check on Nancy? I'll clean up down here and make sure your dad's okay." "You sure I can help?" "Go ahead, babe, I've got this." I heard Sarah climb the stairs, her footsteps fading. Derek waited a full 5 minutes, then approached my chair. He shook my shoulder gently at first, then harder. "Buddy, hey, old man, you awake?" I remained limp, years of playing possum during construction site inspections finally paying off. Derek's breathing quickened. He shook me once more, even lifted my eyelid to check pupil response. Satisfied, he moved toward the stairs. Through the thin gap of my eyelids, I watched him climb. Every step deliberate, avoiding the creaky spots like he'd memorized them. At the landing, he paused, listening. Sarah's voice drifted from Nancy's room, the two women talking quietly. Derek slipped into my bedroom. I counted to 30, then silently followed. By the time I reached the top of the stairs, he was at my dresser. The hidden cameras were capturing everything, multiple angles recording as he used his phone's flashlight to navigate the dark room. He went straight for the drawer, no hesitation. He'd been planning this, watching me, learning my routines. His hands trembled slightly as he gripped the handle. Greed, desperation, and adrenaline creating a cocktail of anticipation. The drawer slid open. The pressure sensor activated. The hidden camera captured his face in perfect clarity as the tiny LED light I'd installed illuminated the contents. Derek froze. His expression transformed from anticipation to confusion to shock in the span of heartbeats. He reached for the photograph with shaking hands, staring at himself with the casino blonde. The sealed envelope beneath caught his attention next. He tore it open, my letter trembling in his fingers as he read. I watched his face cycle through emotions, disbelief, anger, fear, then something approaching panic. He looked around wildly, as if expecting me to materialize from the shadows. "No, no, no," he whispered, grabbing the safe keys. "This isn't happening." He rushed to my closet where the safe sat behind hanging suits. His fingers fumbled with the lock, taking 3 tries to get the combination right. The moment the door swung open, the silent alarm triggered. Paul would receive the alert. The police station would log the breach. The countdown had begun. Derek pawed through the safe's contents, his panic growing. He found the fake deeds, the doctored bank statements, the replica jewelry. But instead of the fortune he'd expected, everything was obviously wrong. The property addresses didn't exist. The account numbers were nonsensical. The Rolex had replica engraved on the back. At the bottom of the safe, he found a manila envelope marked, "Derek, watch the news tomorrow." Inside were copies of every document Paul had gathered. His previous engagements, the forged insurance policy, his gambling debts, screenshots of his poison research, photos with various women, a complete paper trail of his crimes spanning 5 years. The final item was a USB drive labeled confession footage. Derek plugged it into his phone with trembling fingers. The video showed split screens from tonight, him drugging my scotch in the kitchen while Sarah was in the bathroom checking my pulse to ensure I was unconscious, breaking into my drawer, opening my safe. Every crime recorded in high definition. "You're awake." His voice came out strangled, terrified. I stepped into the room, no longer pretending. I've been awake for everything, Derek. Every lie, every scheme, every betrayal of my daughter's trust. He spun around the papers, scattering. This is entrapment, you set me up. I gave you opportunity. You provided the crime. You can't prove anything. I'll say you invited me to look that you're senile, that the cameras recorded everything. Your drugging attempt, which Robert's blood work will confirm, your break-in, your safe cracking, even this conversation. Derek's face went from red to white. Where's Sarah? Safe, which is more than I can say for you. Paul Morrison is outside. The police received the alarm 5 minutes ago. You have maybe 10 minutes before they arrive. I'll tell them everything about your trap, your lies. Tell them. Explain the forged insurance policy, the poison searches, Patricia Morse's father, Rebecca Hayward, Elena Vance. Explain why Marcus Volkov has been calling you about $75,000 in gambling debts. Derek lunged at me, desperation overcoming sense. But I'd been expecting it. 40 years of construction work had kept me stronger than I looked. I sidestepped, using his momentum to send him crashing into the dresser. I wouldn't, I said calmly. Assault would just add to your charges. He scrambled to his feet, wild-eyed. Sarah loves me. She'll never believe you. That's when Sarah's voice cut through the room like a blade. I believe him. She stood in the doorway, Nancy behind her. Tears streamed down her face, but her expression was steel. In her hand was Nancy's phone, showing the live camera feed she'd been watching. Baby, I can explain, Derek started. Explain the vasectomy. Sarah's voice broke. The one you got 3 years ago while telling me we'd start a family after the wedding, Nancy showed me the medical records. Derek's mouth opened and closed like a landed fish. Explain the other women. The gambling. The plan to kill my father. Sarah stepped forward, fury replacing tears. Explain why I've spent 2 years believing I was the problem, that I couldn't get pregnant while you knew the truth. Sarah, please. I'm pregnant, she said quietly. 10 weeks. I was going to surprise you next week for your birthday. Guess the surprise is on me. The revelation hit Derek like a physical blow. His calculations crumbled as he realized the implications. A pregnant wife changed everything. The insurance wouldn't pay out the same way. Sarah would need support, not manipulation. But Derek wasn't finished. His desperation morphed into something darker. You think you've won? He laughed high and unhinged. I've been poisoning him for months. Untraceable compounds in his food, his drinks. Without the antidote, he'll be dead in weeks. Want to save Daddy? You'll need me. The room went silent. Sarah's face crumpled. Nancy gasped. Even I felt a chill despite expecting something like this. Then I smiled. You mean the compounds Robert detected 8 weeks ago? The ones we've been treating with chelation therapy? Those poisons? Derek's confidence evaporated. That's impossible. Nancy's nephew is a toxicologist. We've been testing my blood weekly, every dose documented, every symptom recorded. Your confession just now also recorded. Thank you for that. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. Derek made one last desperate move, rushing towards the window. But Paul Morrison appeared in the doorway, blocking his escape. Going somewhere? Paul asked mildly. Derek crumbled. The weight of his failures, his exposed schemes, the totality of his defeat, crashed down at once. He fell to his knees, sobbing. Not from remorse, but from the recognition that his game was over. I needed the money, he whimpered. Volkov would have killed me. I didn't have a choice. There's always a choice, I said quietly. You chose to prey on families, to destroy trust, to betray the woman who loved you. Those were all choices. The police arrived with efficient professionalism. Derek was read his rights while Sarah watched stone-faced. The evidence was catalogued, the break-in footage, the drugging attempt, the confession about poisoning. One officer mentioned it was the most comprehensive evidence package he'd ever seen. As they led Derek away in handcuffs, he turned to Sarah one last time. I did love you, he said. Sarah's response was devastating in its simplicity. "No, you loved what you thought I could give you. That's not the same thing." After the police left, we sat in my living room, Sarah, Nancy, Paul, and me. The weight of the evening pressed down like a physical thing. Sarah hadn't stopped shaking. "I'm so sorry, sweetheart," I began. "Don't," she said firmly. "Don't apologize for protecting me, for seeing what I couldn't or wouldn't." She looked at her hands. "How did I miss it all?" "Con artists are skilled at their craft," Paul said gently. "Derek had years of practice. You fell in love with an illusion." "What happens now?" Sarah asked. "Now you heal," Nancy said, taking her hand. "You're safe. Your baby's safe. That's what matters." Sarah touched her stomach protectively. "Derek doesn't even know it's not possible for this to be his child." We all looked at her in surprise. A small, sad smile crossed her face. "The fertility doctor confirmed it weeks ago. Derek's vasectomy was thorough. No chance of reversal. This baby, it's from a donor. I was going to tell him after surprising him with the pregnancy." She laughed bitterly. Guess we both had secrets. As dawn broke through my windows, painting the room in soft gold, I realized something profound. Derek had come into our lives like a poison, slowly corrupting everything he touched. But in trying to destroy us, he'd actually made us stronger. Sarah was free from a toxic marriage. I'd learned to trust Nancy completely. Our family bonds were tested and proven unbreakable. Derek thought he'd found easy marks in the Thompson family. Instead, he'd walked into a trap of his own, making undone by the very greed that drove him. The spider had been caught in a web woven from his own lies. But this was far from over. Derek's arrest was just the beginning. The real reckoning was yet to come. The next 72 hours blurred together in a whirlwind of legal procedures, media attention, and devastating revelations. Derek's arrest made the evening news after reporters got wind of the elaborate sting operation. "Local woman discovers husband's murder plot" became the headline that changed everything. Paul Morrison proved invaluable during the chaos. He'd anticipated media attention and advised us to stay quiet, letting the evidence speak for itself. But Derek's public defender had other ideas. Attorney Martin Holloway, a sharp-dressed man with political ambitions, saw an opportunity for publicity and ran with it. My client was entrapped by a paranoid father-in-law with too much money and too much time, Holloway announced on the courthouse steps. This was a family dispute, blown out of proportion by an old man's delusions. The statement might have gained traction if not for what happened next. 3 women appeared at the police station independently, having seen Derek's photo on the news. Patricia Morse flew in from Phoenix. Rebecca Hayward drove from Dallas. Elena Vance video-called from Miami. Each told eerily similar stories of romance manipulation and financial devastation. Patricia's testimony was particularly damning. "My father died of a heart attack 3 weeks after Derek got engaged to me. The autopsy showed unusual compounds in his system, but we couldn't prove anything. Derek had already stolen $200,000 by then." The investigation expanded rapidly. Detective Janet Crawford, a 20-year veteran with sharp eyes and zero tolerance for con artists, took lead. She methodically built a case that revealed Derek's 5-year pattern of predatory behavior. "Your son-in-law is a serial predator," she told me during one interview. "You're lucky. The others weren't." But Derek hadn't given up. From his jail cell, he orchestrated one last manipulation. He called Sarah repeatedly, leaving messages that mixed threats with pleas. When she wouldn't answer, he escalated. On the 4th day after his arrest, Sarah and I were meeting with prosecutors when her phone rang. Unknown number. Against advice, she answered and put it on speaker. "Sarah, baby, please listen." Derek's voice sounded strained, desperate. "Your father's not who you think he is. I have proof he's been hiding money from taxes, bribing officials for construction contracts. If this goes to trial, everyone loses." Sarah's face hardened. Are you seriously trying to blackmail us from jail? I'm trying to protect you. Your perfect daddy isn't so perfect. Ask him about the Riverside Development Project. Ask about Commissioner Bradley. My blood ran cold. The Riverside Project from 15 years ago had involved complex negotiations, but everything was legal. Bradley had been a friend who helped navigate city regulations. Derek was grasping at straws, trying to create doubt. I know all about Riverside, Sarah said evenly. Dad showed me the records years ago when I was learning the business. Try again. Derek's composure cracked. Fine. You want to play hardball? I'll tell everyone about your pregnancy, about the fertility clinic, about how you've been lying to everyone. Go ahead, Sarah said. I'm not ashamed of wanting a child, of taking steps to have one when my husband secretly made that impossible. You don't understand. Derek's voice rose. Volkov's people know where I am. If I don't make bail, if I can't pay them, they'll come after you. After the baby. I'm trying to protect you. Detective Crawford had heard enough. She took the phone. Mr. Jameson, this is Detective Crawford. You just made terroristic threats against a pregnant woman. That's another felony. Keep talking. The line went dead. That afternoon, Marcus Volkov himself appeared at the police station. The gambling kingpin, dressed in an expensive suit that couldn't hide his dangerous edges, had an interesting proposal. I'm willing to testify, he announced to Crawford's amazement. Derek owes me $75,000, but I run a business, not a murder ring. When I found out he was planning to kill for the money that crossed the line, even I have standards. Volkov's testimony revealed Derek's increasing desperation. He'd promised payment by December 31st, claiming a family inheritance was coming. He'd even shown Volkov the forged life insurance policy as collateral. I told him I don't take blood money, Volkov said with disgust. Bad for business, but he kept insisting the old man was dying anyway, that he was just speeding things up. The revelations kept coming. Derek's employer at Pharma Solutions discovered he'd been stealing drug samples for months. The missing inventory matched compounds found in my blood tests. A colleague remembered Derek asking detailed questions about drug interactions and hypothetical poisoning scenarios. But the most shocking revelation came from an unexpected source. Nancy's nephew, Robert the toxicologist, who'd been testing my blood, made a disturbing discovery. Uncle Buddy, he said, visiting me at home. I need to show you something. Remember how we detected those compounds 8 weeks ago? I've been analyzing them further. He spread lab results across my dining table. The technical terms swam before my eyes, but his conclusion was clear. These aren't just random poisons. This is a sophisticated cocktail designed to mimic natural aging decline. Whoever designed this has serious chemistry knowledge. Derek's not that smart, I said. No, but someone helped him. These compounds, I've seen similar combinations in a case study from Europe. A doctor there was convicted of selling inheritance acceleration packages to desperate heirs. My blood chilled. Derek wasn't working alone. He was part of something larger. Detective Crawford took this information and ran with it. Within days, she'd uncovered a connection to Dr. Ernst Richter, a German chemist who'd lost his license for ethical violations. Derek had paid him $10,000 for a consultation 6 months ago. The investigation exploded internationally. Richter was arrested in Berlin, his computer revealing dozens of similar consultations with people targeting elderly relatives. Derek wasn't just a con man. He was part of a murder-for-hire network dressed in medical sophistication. The media frenzy intensified. Our quiet family drama became a cautionary tale about elder abuse, inheritance fraud, and the dangers of pharmaceutical access. Sarah couldn't leave her apartment without reporters asking for statements. During this chaos, Derek made another move. His mother, Eleanor Jameson, appeared from Florida. A well-preserved woman in her 60s, she swept into town with a checkbook and a mission. Whatever Derek has done, he's still my son, she announced at our door. I'll pay whatever it takes to make this go away. Sarah faced her would-be mother-in-law with remarkable composure. Your son tried to murder my father. There's no check big enough to fix that. Eleanor's mask slipped, revealing steel beneath. Everyone has a price. Name yours. Here's my price, Sarah said. Derek tells the complete truth. Every crime, every victim, every accomplice. He helps convict Dr. Richter and anyone else involved. Then he serves his full sentence. No deals, no early release. That's not negotiation, that's surrender. Your son declared war on my family. Surrender is his only option. Eleanor left, but not before making her own threat. You'll regret this. I have resources you can't imagine. She wasn't bluffing. The next day, a team of high-powered defense attorneys replaced Martin Holloway. They filed motions challenging every piece of evidence claiming entrapment coercion and prosecutorial misconduct. They even suggested I'd planted evidence to frame Derek for business reasons. But they hadn't counted on the other victims. Patricia, Rebecca, and Elena formed an alliance sharing evidence and testimonies. More women came forward. Derek's pattern became undeniable: seduce, isolate, steal, vanish. The attempted murder was just his latest escalation. The forensic accountants found more. Derek had opened credit cards in Sarah's name, accumulating $50,000 in debt. He'd taken out loans against their apartment. He'd even sold her jewelry and replaced items with fakes, pocketing the difference. How did I not see any of this? Sarah asked during one of our meetings with prosecutors. Because you trusted your husband, Detective Crawford said gently. That's what predators count on. They weaponize love. The trial date was set for 6 months out. Derek remained in custody bail, denied due to flight risk and danger to witnesses. His calls to Sarah stopped after she changed her number. His mother's legal team kept filing motions, but the evidence mountain grew daily. During a pre-trial hearing, Derek's desperation peaked. As guards led him past our section, he suddenly lunged toward me. "This is all your fault," he screamed. "You destroyed my life, Sarah, and I were happy until you interfered." The outburst, captured by courtroom cameras, ended any sympathy jury members might have felt. His mask had finally shattered completely, revealing the narcissistic rage beneath. That night, Sarah stayed at my house. We sat on the back porch, watching stars appear in the clear sky. She'd started showing her hand protective over the small bump. "I keep thinking about all the signs I missed," she said quietly. The way he'd interrogate you about money but pretend it was casual conversation. How he always knew where you kept things, like he'd been searching when we visited. The way he'd get angry when you said no to anything. Con artists are patient, I reminded her. They build trust over time. But I'm your daughter. I should have protected you. You did protect me. You chose truth over comfortable lies. You stood up to his mother. You're testifying against him. That takes incredible courage. I don't feel brave. I feel stupid. You're not stupid. You're human. You believed in love, in marriage, in building a life with someone. Those aren't weaknesses. She leaned against my shoulder, something she hadn't done since childhood. What happens after the trial? We rebuild. We heal. We welcome your baby into a family that fought for truth and won. And Derek. Derek faces justice. Real justice, not revenge. He'll have years to think about his choices. As if summoned by his name, my phone buzzed with a message from Detective Crawford. Thought you should know. Dr. Richter just agreed to testify against Derek in exchange for reduced charges. He's providing client lists, chemical formulas, everything. Derek's looking at 25 to life. I showed Sarah the message. She read it twice, then nodded slowly. Good, she said simply. Good. We sat in comfortable silence, grandfather and daughter survivors of a war we never asked for. Tomorrow would bring more legal procedures, more revelations, more healing to do. But tonight we had each other the truth and the promise of justice. Derek had unraveled everything, his schemes, his marriage, his future. But in doing so, he'd revealed something stronger, the unbreakable bonds of family who choose truth over comfortable lies. The spider's web had collapsed, taking its weaver down with it. and we were still standing. 6 months later, the Marion County Courthouse buzzed with anticipation. The case of State versus Derek Jameson had captured national attention, becoming a symbol of elder abuse and inheritance fraud. Court TV provided live coverage. True crime podcasters lined the halls. The gallery filled with victims from across the country, all united by Derek's deception. Sarah sat in the front row, her pregnancy now obvious, wearing the same steel expression that had carried her through months of preparation. Nancy held her hand. I sat on her other side, Paul Morrison beside me. Behind us, Patricia, Rebecca, and Elena formed a wall of support. Eleanor Jameson sat across the aisle, her expensive attorneys unable to hide her son's guilt. Derek entered in an orange jumpsuit, shackled and diminished. 6 months in custody had erased his polished exterior. The BMW smile was gone, replaced by hollow eyes and desperation. He scanned the gallery, his gaze lingering on Sarah's pregnant belly, with something like regret, or maybe calculation. With Derek, you could never tell. District Attorney Michelle Rodriguez opened with devastating precision. She outlined Derek's 5-year pattern of predatory behavior, using charts and timelines that showed a serial con artist escalating toward murder. The forged insurance policy appeared on screens. Photos of Derek with various women at casinos. Bank records showing systematic theft. The defendant didn't just betray trust, Rodriguez stated. He weaponized it. He turned love into a tool for financial gain and attempted murder. The defense tried valiantly to muddy waters. Derek's new attorney, James Wellington, painted his client as a desperate man, driven by gambling addiction and mental health issues. He suggested entrapment, questioned evidence handling, and tried to portray me as a vindictive father who never accepted his son-in-law. Then came testimony. Patricia Morse took the stand first, describing her father's mysterious death and Derek's subsequent theft. Her voice broke, recounting how Derek had comforted her at the funeral while wearing jewelry he'd stolen from her father's safe. Rebecca Hayward followed, detailing Derek's elaborate lies about being a successful investor while draining her family's accounts. Elena Vance testified via video link showing scars from when Derek's mask slipped and violence emerged. Detective Crawford presented the evidence methodically. Security footage of Derek drugging my drink. His recorded confession about the poisoning. The connection to Dr. Richter, who testified via secured video from German custody. His accent thick, but his memory clear about Derek's request for something undetectable that mimics natural decline. The forensic accountant revealed Derek's full financial picture: $800,000 stolen across 5 years, $75,000 in gambling debts, 12 credit cards opened fraudulently. The scope shocked even hardened court observers. On day 3, I took the stand. Wellington immediately attacked, suggesting I'd never approved of Derek and had orchestrated everything to remove him from Sarah's life. I answered calmly, sticking to facts. Mr. Thompson. Wellington pressed. Isn't it true you installed cameras specifically to catch Derek? I installed cameras after learning someone had taken out life insurance on me with a forged signature, I replied. Wouldn't you? You set a trap. I protected myself from someone planning my murder. There's a difference. Rodriguez's redirect was simple. Mr. Thompson, what would have happened if you hadn't discovered Derek's plans? I'd be dead, I said quietly, and my daughter would be married to my killer. The courtroom fell silent. Sarah's testimony on day 4 was the emotional pinnacle. She entered heavily pregnant, but determined, speaking clearly about discovering Derek's vasectomy, his lies about wanting children, his manipulations to isolate her from family. He didn't just steal money, she said, voice steady despite tears. He stole my ability to trust. He made me doubt my own father, the man who'd raised me alone after my mother died. Derek took something precious and twisted it into something ugly. Wellington made a critical error in cross-examination. Mrs. Jameson, isn't it possible you're exaggerating now to justify your divorce? Sarah's eyes flashed. I'm not Mrs. Jameson. I never was. I was married to a fiction a character Derek played, and I'm not exaggerating. If anything, I'm minimizing because the full truth is too painful to speak aloud. She then revealed something she'd kept private. Derek had been slowly poisoning her too. Small doses of sleeping medication in her evening tea, keeping her compliant and foggy. Robert's tests had confirmed it. The revelation sent shockwaves through the gallery. Even Eleanor Jameson looked shaken. Derek's own testimony was a masterclass in narcissistic manipulation. He admitted to some poor financial decisions, but denied everything else. He claimed I'd given him permission to access the safe, said the poison searches were for a novel he was writing, insisted the insurance policy was Sarah's idea for family protection. Rodriguez destroyed him on cross-examination. She produced his text messages to accomplices' emails to Dr. Richter, recorded calls from jail trying to intimidate witnesses. Each denial met with contradicting evidence until Derek's composure cracked. "You don't understand," he finally shouted. "Buddy Thompson destroyed my life. He turned Sarah against me. He set me up because he couldn't stand seeing his daughter happy." "Is happy?" Rodriguez asked quietly. "Was Sarah happy when you were poisoning her? When you were stealing her inheritance? When you were planning to murder her father?" Derek had no answer. Marcus Volkov's testimony added another layer. The gambling kingpin granted immunity for cooperation detailed Derek's promises of inheritance money and his casual discussions of speeding up the process. Even Volkov seemed disgusted by Derek's callousness. The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours. As the foreman stood, the gallery held its breath. "Guilty on all counts." The words echoed through the courtroom. Attempted murder, fraud, forgery, theft, conspiracy, terroristic threats, 23 guilty verdicts in total. Derek slumped in his chair while Eleanor Jameson sobbed. Sarah closed her eyes, one hand on her belly, finally releasing months of tension. At sentencing 2 weeks later, Judge Patricia Chen allowed victim impact statements. Patricia, Rebecca, and Elena spoke of financial ruin and emotional devastation. I talked about the violation of family trust. But Sarah's statement resonated most deeply. "Derek," she said, looking directly at him, "I want you to know something. Despite everything you've done, I don't hate you. I pity you. You had everything: a wife who loved you, a family who welcomed you, a future full of possibility. But it wasn't enough. Your greed cost you everything. While you're in prison, I'll be raising my child to value truth over money, love over manipulation. My baby will know their grandfather is a hero who protected our family. You'll just be a cautionary tale." Judge Chen's sentence reflected the severity: 45 years without possibility of parole. Derek would be 93 before release if he lived that long. As guards led him away, he turned once more to Sarah, perhaps finally understanding what he'd lost. The aftermath brought unexpected healing. Sarah's story inspired legislation strengthening elder abuse protections. She started a foundation helping families identify and escape financial predators. The Thompson Trust Initiative provided resources, legal aid, and emotional support to victims nationwide. Dr. Richter's arrest led to an international investigation uncovering a network of inheritance acceleration schemes. Dozens of elderly people were saved from potential poisoning. Sarah testified before Congress about the need for stricter pharmaceutical oversight and elder protection laws. A year later, I stood in the hospital room holding my grandson. Sarah had named him William Thomas Thompson, honoring both his donor heritage and family legacy. As I looked into his innocent eyes, I felt the last of Derek's poison leave our lives. Nancy and I married on my 70th birthday in a small ceremony at the lake house Derek had coveted. Sarah served as my best woman baby William, gurgling happily in her arms. Patricia, Rebecca, and Elena attended our shared trauma, transformed into genuine friendship. During the reception, Sarah pulled me aside. "Dad, I need to tell you something. I've met someone." My protective instincts flared, but she smiled. "His name is Michael Chen. He's a pediatric nurse at the hospital. He knows everything about Derek, about William, about our story. He says it shows our family's strength." "How do you know he's genuine?" "Because he insisted on signing a prenup without me asking. Because he's never once asked about your money. Because he looks at William like he hung the moon. And because—" She paused. "Because I'm taking it slow, very slow. I've learned to verify before I trust." 3 years later, at Sarah and Michael's wedding, I gave a different kind of speech. Not about protection or vigilance, but about resilience and redemption. About how sometimes the worst betrayals lead to the strongest bonds. Michael's vows to both Sarah and William brought tears to everyone's eyes. Derek's mother tried one last manipulation, offering Sarah $10 million to speak favorably at a parole hearing. Sarah donated the check to the Thompson Trust Initiative without cashing it, framing the voided document as a reminder that some things can't be bought. Derek himself became a cautionary tale in true crime circles. Podcasts dissected his patterns. Documentary crews interviewed his victims. Psychology professors used his case to illustrate narcissistic personality disorder. He achieved fame, just not the kind he'd wanted. The safe that once held my valuables now contains different treasures. William's first drawings, photos from Sarah's second wedding, letters from families saved by the Thompson Trust. The drawer where Derek found his downfall holds birthday cards from a grandson who calls me Pop Pop and thinks I'm invincible. Derek thought he was robbing an old man's safe. Instead, he robbed himself of everything that mattered. His greed became his gravity, pulling him down while lifting our family higher. We learned that real wealth isn't measured in dollars, but in truth, trust, and the courage to protect those we love. Some nights I still check my locks and remember that 3 a.m. creak of my bedroom door. But then I hear William's laughter from the guest room where Sarah's family stays during visits, and I know Derek failed in the most fundamental way. He tried to destroy a family, but only made us unbreakable. The spider spun his web for years, catching victim after victim. But when he tried to catch the Thompsons, he discovered we weren't flies. We were the storm that tore his web apart, thread by poisonous thread. And somewhere in a federal prison, Derek Jameson has 40 more years to think about that. What would you do if you discovered a family member was planning something sinister? Would you have the courage to set a trap and expose the truth, even if it meant losing someone you thought you loved? Sometimes protecting family means making the hardest choices. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please consider giving it a like and subscribing for more stories about families who faced the unthinkable and emerged stronger. Share this with someone who needs to hear that justice, though sometimes delayed, is worth fighting for. Thank you for joining me on this journey, and remember, the greatest inheritance we can leave our children isn't money, but the wisdom to recognize truth and the courage to defend it. Until next time, stay vigilant and trust your instincts. They might just save your life.